Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Scary Story Channel. Tonight I have a tale for you that will make you think twice before looking at your own reflection. It's about an old, ornate mirror and the thing that decided to call it home. Our story begins with a young couple, Liam and Chloe, who had just moved into their first apartment. It was a charming, slightly run-down place in an old Victorian building filled with character and, as they would soon discover, secrets. They were on a tight budget, so most of their furniture came from second-hand shops and flea markets. One Saturday, while browsing a dusty antique store on the edge of town, Chloe's eyes fell upon a magnificent mirror. It was huge, framed in dark, intricately carved wood. The carvings depicted twisted vines and strange, unidentifiable flowers. The glass itself was thick and slightly warped, giving reflections a subtle, dreamlike quality. The shop owner, a frail old man with cloudy eyes, seemed almost relieved to sell it. He gave them a significant discount, muttering something about it being in his family for too long and that it was time for a new view. Liam and Chloe, thrilled with their find, paid the man and lugged the heavy mirror back to their apartment. They decided to hang it in the main hallway, right across from the front door. It immediately transformed the space, making the narrow hall feel larger and more elegant. For the first few days, they were delighted with it. They'd catch their reflections as they passed, straightening a collar or fixing their hair. It was just a beautiful piece of decor. But then, the strange things started happening. It began subtly. Liam would be walking down the hall and out of the corner of his eye, he'd think he saw a flicker of movement in the mirror, a shadow darting just behind his reflection. When he turned to look directly, there was nothing there. He dismissed it as a trick of the light, the old glass playing games with his perception. Chloe experienced it too. One evening, while getting ready to go out, she was putting on her makeup in front of the mirror. For a split second, she saw her own reflection smile back at her. But it wasn't her smile. It was wider, colder, and utterly devoid of warmth. Her heart skipped a beat, and when she blinked, her reflection was back to normal, mimicking her own shocked expression. She told Liam about it, but they both laughed it off, blaming it on stress from the move and their new jobs. But the incidents became more frequent and harder to ignore. Sometimes they would hear faint whispers seeming to emanate from the mirror when no one was in the hall. It sounded like soft, sibilant hissing, a language they couldn't understand. The air around the mirror grew colder, a persistent chill that clung to the hallway even on warm days. One night Liam woke up needing a glass of water. As he walked out of the bedroom and into the hall, he glanced at the mirror. In the dim moonlight filtering through the window, he saw a figure standing in the reflection. It wasn't him. It was tall and gaunt, a shadowy silhouette with long, thin limbs. It stood perfectly still, just behind where his own reflection should have been. Liam froze, his blood turning to ice. He couldn't scream, couldn't move. He just stared, transfixed by the terrifying shape. The figure slowly lifted a long, skeletal hand and waved, not at him, but at his empty space in the reflection. Liam slammed the bedroom door shut, his back pressed against it, his heart pounding in his chest. He woke Chloe, stammering about what he had seen. She tried to calm him down, suggesting it was just a nightmare, a sleep-addled hallucination. But when they both listened, they could hear a faint, rhythmic tapping coming from the hallway. Tap, tap, tap. It sounded like a fingernail on glass. They spent the rest of the night huddled together, too terrified to leave the room. The next morning, sunlight streamed into the apartment, and the fear of the night seemed to recede. Liam, feeling a bit foolish, cautiously opened the bedroom door. The hallway was empty. The mirror looked just as it always did, elegant and silent. There was no sign of anything unusual, except for a tiny hairline crack in the top corner of the glass that they were sure hadn't been there before. They decided they had to get rid of the mirror. It was beautiful, but it wasn't worth the terror it was causing. That evening they tried to take it down from the wall. As they lifted the heavy frame, a strange thing happened. The mirror seemed to resist, to become impossibly heavy. As they struggled with it, Chloe glanced at the reflection. She saw not their own struggling figures, but the interior of a different room. It was a dark, decrepit chamber with peeling wallpaper and cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. And in the center of that reflected room, a figure was beginning to form, coalescing from the shadows. With a shared cry of panic, they dropped the mirror. It hit the floor with a deafening crash, the glass shattering into 1,000 pieces. For a moment, there was a deathly silence. Then, a wail echoed through the apartment, a sound of pure agony and rage that seemed to come from the broken shards themselves. It rose in pitch until it was a piercing shriek, and then as suddenly as it began, it stopped. Shaken and breathing heavily, they stared at the wreckage. The beautiful frame was splintered, and the floor was covered in glittering fragments of glass. The oppressive chill in the hallway was gone. The air felt lighter, cleaner. It was over. They carefully swept up every last piece of the broken mirror, put them in a thick contractor bag, and took them to a dumpster far from their home. They never spoke of the incident to anyone, fearing they would be called crazy. But they never forgot. They never bought another antique. And for the rest of their lives, both Liam and Chloe would feel a deep, primal unease whenever they caught their own reflection staring back at them from a mirror. They knew that for a few terrifying weeks, they hadn't been alone in their apartment. They had lived with something that watched them from another place, something that resided within the silvered glass, a ghost in the mirror. And they knew how close it had come to breaking through. What do you think was trapped inside that mirror? A spirit? A creature from another dimension? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thank you for joining me on the Scary Story channel. If you enjoyed this tale, please like, share and subscribe for more chilling content. Stay safe and always be careful what you bring into your home. You never know what might be looking back.